Hello everyone, this is Dmitry from Dim Studio. We are continuing our series of video tutorials on working with the current version of the Xrumer program. Today we're working on the question and answer system. Moreover, we won't just be answering questions, but also replying to those who answer. In fact, we need to create 3 separate profiles. This means we'll have 3 separate projects. And with these profiles, we'll be developing a scheme where there will be one person asking a question and 2 people answering. So, as you've already gathered from the topic, this mainly works on forums, that is, places where we can register accounts. Now let's do some preparatory work for this scheme. So, first of all, since we're going to be working with RBases, in the settings, under reporting settings, we need to check that the creation of RBases is enabled. This checkbox in the middle for the bases should be checked. The checkbox must be enabled. Save it. Second, we need to prepare the questions and answers themselves. For now, I've prepared a question and an answer, that is for 2 profiles, but of course I didn't write them myself. I made a request through ChatG5 and it generated 200 questions and 200 answers with systems of variations. Like this? With these kinds of schemes, and we will be asking questions on the topic of New Year's gifts, and accordingly the answers will already direct to the promoted resource, including our specially promoted link. So what we've done is create 2 files, and we can immediately create the first project, that is, we create a blank project, quarter 1. Question 1, and here we immediately generate some random values. Basically, you don't really need to change anything here, because for the person asking the question, we won't be adding any advertising information here, so we just leave everything as default. The main thing to remember here is that we need to use a real email since we'll be activating profiles. In order for the profile to be active, that is, to activate it via email, I mean. And we shouldn't include any advertising information here so that everything looks fairly neutral. So I'm entering the first email address. For now, I'm using my own domain, but you can use any email address. I'm using a disposable for this purpose. Be sure to check that the email is working. Yes, everything's fine. The connection is established. And to check, let's set up our scheme. So first we'll ask a question inserting a macro using the file link macro. That means first comes the macro name, then the path to the file with the question. We'll output 1 line at a time, meaning I have 1 question, 1 line with a line break. And let's immediately see how it will ask the question and how it will answer. I have a file with answers from answer. Let's click on test and see what I got. The first one here is, hi blah 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 etc. Where to buy? And the answer, hello, well, gifts are here, here, and here. So basically I have everything I need. You can create your own questions, you can use ChatGPT, you can come up with something here. In the visual editor, the structure, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that the one asking the question is actually asking a question. And the one answering should give an actual answer, and we'll be answering on Airbaza. Airbaza will appear after the first run through when we start posting. But for now, first we need to register a profile. So here we save it as the project equation 1. The password is entered incorrectly because there are special characters, but unfortunately I'll have to modify it a bit. Alright, we've saved the new login and password and everything works. So we click check, make sure that access is okay, and it's essential that we first register the account. Basically, here we just enter something in the subject so that our project is saved, and then we need to set a specific mode. In this case, it will be registration only, so that the account simply gets registered. I also recommend using the ChatG5 settings, so that when there are unknown fields, Xrumer can solve the antibot itself. Questions and all sorts of unknown fields. That's why we entered OpenAI and the personal account. We accessed it here and clicked on test to check that we have access. If everything is okay, it says yes, this looks like a test and I'm ready to help you. Today everything is fine there. This means that ChatGPT is ready to work. Let's move on. After enabling registration only mode, we select the database. we will use a database from DIM Studio, specifically a PHPBB forums database. Once again, we check that everything we need here is already filled in, but basically we only need this part, meaning just an email and some name. We save everything and launch Xyvel. My Xyvel is set up through a different IP, meaning it won't be running locally, but through another IP, so as not to multiply proxies. And in principle, let's just start with 100 threads on this database. Let's hit start from the beginning, so registration and activation will begin of profiles. Let's wait for it. So the first run is complete, and we definitely need to do a resend. For the rest, to go through those resources that we couldn't get through the first time, it continues from the last position, and those resources that can be retried will be retried. We wait. So the resend is complete, and now we move on to creating the second project, which will be the one to respond. For this, we create a new project, let's call it, for example, replay 1, and we also add it here using autofill. We also enter the address of the second email. We won't add any advertising inserts to the account or to the messages themselves either. This is primarily done so that the admin who will start reviewing our question answer setup doesn't suspect anything suspicious. Ideally, of course, you should do this in the language of your question, but I won't do that right now. I'll just go with what is suggested to us automatically. Here it will be Donald, something like that, with 2 to 5 characters added, plus a password and email. We take it from our setup. The login is the same for us, and the password will be this one here. And the Poppy server. As usual, make sure to click check. Okay, we see that the setup works, and we save it. The project is saved. Here it appears for us, and we do another run on this same database, but with a different one. Email with different users, and most importantly, it's best if you have a different IP. For this, we either enable this option here so that only without proxies don't send me. And also, ideally, you should have purchased them. Of course, they should be bought, and we do exactly the same. The same run at first, already in 2. Here the old one is finishing. Let's restart Xrumer. I did it a bit incorrectly, so that's question 1. Our run has finished. And for the response, we also create the same profile using this same database. Be sure to update so that the proxies are either purchased or collected here. Of course, it's preferable that they are purchased. Once again, we meticulously check to ensure that we have a completely different email address set up. Then we can proceed to close it and also begin the entire process from the very beginning. In this case, there are a lot of them. There are a lot of these protective messages because we're using proxies. Just a reminder when we use proxies. The verification will be much worse, so now, just to show you, I'll disable the proxy and we'll work in standard mode. The run is continuing, so let's wait for it to finish and then do the same mailing for the rest. So, our second profile is also ready, and let's immediately create a third profile which will respond to this second profile. So again, let's open a new profile, and it will be R2, here too. We'll use autofill again. Let's make it female. We have Wendy and also Rebecca. Then there's Tonya, followed by Rachel, and let's not forget Betty, and finally Teresa. Alright, let's go with Linda. And accordingly, the email for the third one should also be different. That's important. A key point. Here's what I do. When I have 3 accounts on the same domain, it's not really correct because you can get banned specifically for that. That is the email domain itself. So that's a bit wrong. But right now I don't have any special emails, so that's why I do it this way. Be sure to click the button to check everything is okay. And again, for this same database, we don't like the password, so let's change the password a bit. Saved. Revision 2, now we have 3. projects and we start working with this same database. With a different email account, we hit start. At first, we do the same thing in the same mode. Just create a profile. Let's go. And now our third profile has also successfully completed registration. By the third profile, I mean the third project with a profile that will respond and confirm that everything went well in this store. And now we start directly with posting, switching to the very first project where we initially completed registration. Now we will start asking questions. How is this done? First, I would also create relevant questions here, which I will do now. Also, I'll quickly connect through the G5 chat again and click on test. Here you go. Alright, let's say the topic doesn't quite match. Because the site is built on a workshop platform, there are different directions, so it didn't align here. But that's okay. What matters to us right now is how this works. That's it, we save it. And now we move on to setting up Xrumer itself, how this will work. Since we've completed the registration, we switch to posting as a pre-registered user. And here it's essential that we create a topic. In other words, we'll be asking a question. This will be our own new topic. We first save the data, ensuring its integrity, and then subsequently, using the identical and robust database system, we proceed to execute the entire process in a specialized posting mode by clicking the clearly visible Start button, which initiates the operation. First, of course, it's preferable that our login and activities are spread out over a day, not done all at once. Unlike what I did just now, basically I did everything within an hour. It's better to let some time pass before responding. The admin might need to activate some records or do something else, so let's wait. Let's wait until the first run with the messages completed. So the first run is finished. Now we have successfully generated comprehensive reports and integrated them with two distinct databases. Specifically, here they are, designated as E and R. So subsequently, after we have meticulously created the initial topics, we then proceed to perform a complete replay operation up to the precisely defined replay point. Accordingly, it will look as follows. We also set up. So this will be specifically for Xrumer, dealing with the essential swap files. We absolutely need the title for the response to be presented in a single continuous line without any line breaks whatsoever. Just the main header, purely as a precautionary measure just in case. And actually the response itself. For me, it's just answers. Also, just one answer. We click on test and check it. But here, of course, it's incorrect for me. Here too, something truly significant needs to be changed. Like how I warmly greet you, my dear ones. You definitely need a special gift. And here is our fantastic promotional text. We meticulously save everything. Okay, and we click start. At first there will be a little delay. By the way, it's not necessary to choose exactly the airbase, but the airbase. It genuinely gives us the answer to our topic, so we will carefully leave it as is and patiently wait for it to be posted and published. So our run is finished and now it's easy to find. We go to the analyzer, not the filter. The analyzer, the linked database, the source. We'll already have our posting and a successful report. So let's start collecting from scratch. We'll be searching for our host. Inside the content, we'll analyze internal pages, additional, request without www. There isn't much here, so we click start. And wherever there are any, here our links will appear. Well, let's continue our run through these links for the third time. With our response, meaning the confirmation, we already have an account registered, so we also insert the topic, where you can also insert a reply. Yes, so this will be file C, and so this will be title and answers one by one without line breaks, just as is. And here we already insert our confirmation, that is, we do it one by one with the text as well. Let's test it, check what we've got, joining the positive reviews, blah, blah, blah. And here's another confirmation from the second guy. Yes, so this will be the third level of our replies. We save it, okay? And we also make a post first, also on the airbase start first. And our second run is also complete. And let's take a look. I've already opened several text options, so let's look at the first one. Question: can you recommend which sets to choose? Text without advertising, without anything extra. The first person replies, hello, I recommend checking out our website, blah blah blah. Let's move on. And another person replies that they completely agree, that this store has fair prices and so on. So here you go, and let's not forget that in the project we can also create a game with macros. A game like how to reply to the previous user. There is a special macro that, for example, quotes the previous speaker. And if you add it here, I'm not going to explain how macros work right now. There will be a separate video dedicated to that. But the better you work on this field, the higher the quality you'll get. This very answer right here. And of course this one and this one as well. But right now, here, it's absolutely perfect because we have two completely different people. Ideally, of course, these accounts should be registered from different IPs. Maybe even a woman and a man. And it's important that the text isn't just something like I confirm, but for example, I made a purchase around such and such a date. They delivered it on this or that date, so add more specifics and then your text will be much more human readable. Let's take a look at this text as well. Here's another example. Good afternoon, I'm looking for such and such. Can you recommend something? Here, as you can see, we had a mistake with the text. In other words, our chat. G5 forgot to put spaces there. Because of this, the link became unclickable and the response accordingly is join the discussion in the comments. This is also from the family icon store. When you create a link, always add HTTPS, then it will be clickable. Here it would have become clickable too, but our icon and the link merged into one. This text right here. That's why it turned out this way. And finally, what I liked, the same thing. Hello. A question and two answers. Here you go. Feel free to ask for advice. There's no HTTP here either, so the link isn't clickable. And here too, you see, our link is stuck to the text. But here, the answer is just a clean link, even with a smiley face, which is great. It stands out on this side. It's accessible and high quality, amazing on the website. There's a link to the site accordingly, and without any href or bb code, just as it is. And don't forget that yes, since this is a forum, we can also use bb code. That means we can add images, emojis, highlight text in bold to make everything look nice. So this part is also necessary. Don't forget, I just did this quickly. So for your information, here's a topic you can use. That's how it works. Basically, it's simple. So we registered 3 accounts, 1 to ask the question and 2 to answer. And then we simply switch the databases CL to R, and already on the R database. We write the answers, and again, don't forget that there are macros that can reply to the current user, to the previous speaker. If we manage to do this, in other words, other people might send in questions or answers here after our first message. But we will be replying specifically to someone. The main thing is that the text matches the original question, and then everything will be high quality. That's all from me. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and hit the bell. There will be a lot more interesting things here. See you next time. Bye.